There's just 2 weeks left for the NFL season. This 2025 NFL season has been one of the best seasons ever because there were a lot of teams that really excelled, even though much of the NFL did not see these teams as going far as they did. While most teams who we thought that was going to carry the momentum that they had last season into this season fall under pressure. And one of those teams happened to be the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions started off the season with a promising 5-2 record before their initial bye week around week 8. And since then, the Lions have been on a twisted spiral, losing every other game in between after the bye, and recently have lost games back-to-back for the very first time since the 2022-2023 NFL season, which was the start of the beginning of the Lions having a resurgence after being irrelevant for the last couple of years. The Lions find themselves at 8-7 after losing to both the Steelers in a controversial game and the Rams, and their chances of making the playoffs are close to zero. Statistically, when we look at the Lions' performance this season, they're having a good season on paper. Offensively, nothing has changed, with the exception of offensive coordinator Ben Johnson leaving for the Bears to be their head coach. But with the offense, it's the same scheme, same formula, and the results remain the same, as the offense has always done well for the most part. On the defensive side of the ball, however, the defense was healthy during the earlier part of the season, until injuries started to pile up every week. The Lions are glad that they have their pass rusher Aiden Hutchinson back for this season after he went down last season. But on that back end of that defense, they have lost key starters in Kirby Joseph, Terrion Arnold, Brian Branch, and linebacker Zach Cunningham, their major starters on that defensive side of the ball. For the most part this season, even when the defense was healthy, the defense haven't been able to stop anything as they're inconsistent. From the looks of it, you can tell that this defense really misses the presence of Aaron Glenn, as his replacement in Kelvin Sheppard is terrible at defensive coordinator. Now, this is Kelvin Sheppard's very first year as defensive coordinator, so I might let him slide for a little bit. He may redeem himself next season. It takes time for things to get the way they should be when it comes to being a coach. But I'm not sold on Kelvin Sheppard yet as defensive coordinator, so the jury is out on that one. But for the last few weeks, it seems like the problem with why the Lions aren't doing so good this season is possibly Dan Campbell, the head coach. Now, I give it to him. He's a decent head coach. And the Lions are really lucky to have him in Detroit because he could have went anywhere else. But I really believe that he is part of the blame for why the team's lackluster performance since the bye week. He's pretty much one with himself right now, as he can be overly aggressive at the worst time possible. And that game against the Steelers is a perfect example of that. And many times, Dan has admitted that these losses were on him, considering that Dan Campbell has had 3 winning seasons under his belt and had reached the postseason twice consecutively. I believe he's feeling the pressure of the competition because other teams have gotten better. As other teams have evolved, as he worries about who is he facing against, instead of finding a strategy to match up to the competition that he is facing against. There's just 2 weeks left in the NFL regular season. And it's do or die for the Lions, as their next and last 2 games against teams that are in their division in the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears determines their fate of the season for the Lions. The Lions, right now in the playoff picture, are one of the only 2 teams still in the NFC playoff picture hunt, with the other one being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers losing to the Carolina Panthers. The Lions could win their last 2 games and could go 10-7 and reach the NFC wildcard at least. But it won't be easy, especially when you have teams like the Minnesota Vikings are looking to play spoiler, while the Bears under the leadership of Ben Johnson will just outcoach you at any given way. From the looks of it, this looks like a wasted season, considering that the Lions started off strong in the first half of the season, only for them to be 8-7 and could miss the playoffs for the very first time since 2023. On paper, The Lions' offense and defense are doing whatever they can to have a good season despite inconsistencies. It's just that Dan Campbell gets caught up in the moment to fumble half of the Lions' games away. Now, for the past couple of days, literally after the game against the Steelers, there have been rumors and speculations about certain players not coming back to the Lions next season. I've been hearing that Jared Goff could possibly be out of Detroit next year. And if that's the case, then the Detroit Lions have to go into the free agency pool to look for a quarterback, because there is no quality quarterback coming out of the college draft class coming up. I mean, if the Lions could do anything to get Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow really wants to be out of Cincinnati, then that would be great for Dan Campbell, because he doesn't really have to work for much. He doesn't really have a lot in Cincinnati. And with him going to Detroit, he will be a lot better with Dan Campbell being his head coach too. I'm pretty sure much of you guys have saw the photo of David Montgomery in his locker room with his jersey on top of his little shelf. So he is possibly hinting a trade. I'm guessing his presence is no longer good here because he is splitting carries with Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know what's going on with that situation right there. But I hope David Montgomery stays in Detroit. Him and Jahmyr Gibbs are a two-punch crew at running back. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he can't really do everything himself when it comes to the running game. David Montgomery is the bruiser. Jahmyr Gibbs is the speed and running back. They need both of those guys. But if David Montgomery feels unhappy in Detroit and wants to go to another team, then so be it. They'll just have to find another solution. Well, there's nothing further, and this has been another NFL edition of the Eli Speaks Show. Let me know what you guys think about my take about the Detroit Lions. And what do you think about the Detroit Lions' performance this season? And do you guys believe that Dan Campbell is the main reason why the Detroit Lions have been held back this entire season? Let me know what you guys think. And as always, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Merry Christmas, and thanks for listening.